I hold a ghost, and it is dying. The essence of it, the very soul of what I once was, grows fainter with every passing day. It is a slow, silent evaporation, a retreat into the nothingness of the air. I feel it as a hollowness, a lightness in my core that is heavier than any weight. Dust has become my new skin, a soft, gray shroud that dulls my facets and blurs my reflection of the world. I stand motionless on this vast, polished plain of dark wood, a forgotten soldier on a forgotten battlefield. The light that reaches me is weak, filtered through heavy curtains that have not been drawn in what feels like a lifetime. It paints the room in shades of melancholy, long, tired stripes of pale yellow that crawl across the floor as the sun makes its lonely journey across the sky. The silence here is not empty, it is a presence. It is thick, textured, composed of the low hum of the city far below, the gentle settling of the old house's bones, and the almost imperceptible sound of dust motes dancing in the slivers of light. It is a silence that listens. And then there is his sound, the soft, deliberate tread of his shoes on the floorboards in the hall. The weight of his presence presses down on the quiet, a disruption in the stillness. Each footstep is a reminder of the new order, of the great and terrible change. He is the curator of this silence, the architect of this emptiness. His movements are methodical, measured. He is a man erasing a story, and I am the last, stubborn word he has not yet managed to cross out. He enters the room, and the air shifts, growing colder. He does not look at me, not anymore. My existence is an oversight, or perhaps a cruelty he reserves for himself. He moves to the chest of drawers, the sound of the wood sliding open a groan of protest in the quiet. It is a sound that tears a hole in time. That sound, the scrape of wood on wood, is the key. It unlocks the past, and for a moment, I am no longer cold and empty. I am warm, held. The memory floods me, not as a picture, but as a sensation. The feeling of her hand, cool and delicate, closing around my glass body. The gentle click as she would lift my stopper. And then, the release. The glorious, unrestrained bloom of my soul into the air. Jasmine and sandalwood, a spark of bergamot, a secret whisper of amber. I was her ritual, the final touch before she faced the world or welcomed him home. Her skin, the warmth of her pulse at her neck, her wrists. That was my true home. She would lift me to the light, admiring the way the amber liquid caught the sun, and she would smile, a smile that was mine alone. My little secret, she would whisper, the vibration of her voice traveling through her fingers into my very being. I remember the sounds of her life. Her laughter was like a cascade of small bells, a sound that made the air in the room feel lighter. I remember the murmur of their conversations, fragments that have become my scripture. You are my whole world, he would say, his voice thick with a sincerity that felt as solid as the ground beneath this house. Don't be silly, she would laugh. The world is so much bigger. There were other fragments too, sharper ones. Where were you tonight? Her voice, not laughing now, but tight, like a wire. Working, he would reply, his voice flat, a stone skipping across the surface of a deep, dark lake. You always smell of the city when you come home late, she once said, not to him, but to herself, as she held me, but never of another woman's perfume. She trusted me. She trusted what I told her. I was a constant, a truth in a world that was beginning to warp and bend around her. In the beginning, I was a gift, a promise. He gave me to her on an anniversary, the box wrapped in silver paper. I was a symbol of his adoration, of her elegance. I lived on the vanity, a place of honor, surrounded by her silver backed brushes and porcelain pots of cream. I was used with joy, a daily celebration of her beauty, of their love. Every morning, the ritual. Every evening, before he came home, a small, hopeful touch up. I felt the life of the house, the rhythm of their days, the warmth of summer afternoons, the cozy quiet of winter nights. I watched her dress for parties, the shimmer of silk, the glint of jewelry. I watched her undress, the tired sigh as she let the day fall away. I was a silent witness to their intimacy, their arguments, their reconciliation. I was a part of her, an extension of her presence. My scent lingered on their sheets, on his collars, in the very air of the room. I was the invisible thread that bound their lives together. Then, the thread began to fray. The rituals changed. My stopper was lifted with less frequency. Some mornings, she would stare at her own reflection, her eyes distant, and walk away without reaching for me. The laughter in the house was replaced by long, heavy silences, the kind I am now so familiar with. The arguments became whispers behind closed doors, sharp and venomous, sounds I could feel as vibrations through the floorboards. One evening, the shouting was louder than it had ever been. Words like daggers. I can't do this anymore. What did you expect? You lied to me. Then, a different sound, the shattering of glass. Not me, something else. But I felt the shock of it, a tremor of fear. That was the last night I felt the warmth of her hand. The next day, he was the one who entered the room, alone. His movements were frantic at first, then chillingly calm. He opened her closet and, with methodical precision, began to pull her dresses from their hangers, stuffing them into large, black plastic bags, the beautiful silks and soft wools, all disappearing into the void. He stripped the bed, her pillowcase, which still held the faintest ghost of me, tossed into a bag with the rest. He went to her desk, sweeping letters and papers into a box. He took the photographs from their frames, his face a mask of stone, and stacked them in a pile. He was erasing her, systematically, silently. He was unwriting their history. He worked for hours. The room grew barer, colder, more anonymous with every object he removed. Finally, he stood in the center of the room, his chest heaving. His eyes scanned the space, a general inspecting a conquered and sterilized land. His gaze fell upon the vanity, upon me. He walked over, his shadow falling over me. He reached out his hand, and for a terrifying second, I thought he would sweep me into the trash with the rest of her life. But he stopped. His fingers hovered just above my stopper. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes beyond the cold determination, a flicker of pain, of memory. He couldn't do it. To throw me away would be to admit that the scent, the memory, was truly gone. To keep me was a punishment, a constant, silent accusation. He let his hand fall. He turned and walked out of the room, leaving me here, on the empty vanity, in the silent, hollowed out space that was once her world, and the silence that followed was absolute. My purpose was to be emptied, to give everything I had, until nothing remained. I had simply never considered what would come after. I have accepted my new state. I am a monument to an absence. My emptiness is my testimony. The fine layer of dust is my plaque, marking a time and a place that no longer exists. I am a glass bottle, a vessel for a fragrance that was born of flowers and woods and secrets, a scent that was once named l'heure silencieuse, the silent hour. How prophetic! Humans build monuments of stone to fight against being forgotten. They write their names in books and carve them into trees. But their most honest history is written in the air, in the scents they leave on a pillow, in the lingering aroma of a meal shared, in the ghost of a perfume clinging to the edges of an empty room. He measures his life now in days, weeks, months since she was gone. I measure it in the slow, molecular decay of her last trace on earth. My last breath of perfume is the only proof she ever existed here. Soon I will be just glass, and she will be nothing,